Great. Hi, I'm Mike Henry, Manager of Government Relations for UCAR, and I'm not a scientist, I have to preface that. However, I did get my merit badge in weather when I was a Boy Scout. I'm very proud of that. I'm going to be talking today about why opening a UCAR Washington office makes sense. So I'm going to start out with a cartoon here. So let's imagine that we're the scientists and we're sitting on this ice floe in the middle of this channel here. We've got global warming. We can see that better than anyone in the world. We don't know what to do, how to respond. We feel powerless. There's this global financial meltdown that we have to worry about. We feel powerless about that. So what do? We have to climb to higher ground. That essentially is what the DC office is going to help us do. It is going to open April 1st. This is not a hypothetical. I'm going to be moving to DC in March to help set this up. So I want to argue that there are 4 excellent reasons why we've got to do this. One, we've got an unprecedented fiscal and political environment, a situation in DC we've got to deal with. We've got to figure out how to secure new public and private funding in this environment. And to do that, we're going to have to build relationships with the right kind of people, i.e. funders, and we're going to have to tell our stories to those people. And also, there's a leadership vacuum, we think, in DC, especially on advocacy in our community. How are we going to fill that in? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of these 4 reasons. To start, let's go with the fiscal situation here. This is NCAR's funding over the last decade. This is nominal dollars. So you see up to about 2010, things were fine and dandy, and then NCAR takes a nosedive. What happened here? So it turns out that this is actually part of a larger trend, that this is not happening just to NCAR. If you look at federal non-defense R&D as a whole pool, it's been happening the whole decade. In fact, if you look at the red line, that's sequestration. That's what happens on March 1st if we don't figure a way to deal with that. So the point I want to make is that the fiscal environment we're dealing with here is symptomatic of the larger political environment. As Alan Abramovich calls it, the disappearing center. So it couldn't get any worse, right? All right, Thomas Mann and Norm Ornstein just proved me wrong. But truly, there is an issue here where we have 2 parties. It's extremely polarized, and we can't agree on how to reconcile our nation's debt, and often we can't agree on whether we have a debt problem to begin with. So I promise this is not the Keystone XL pipeline. This is the pipeline that is bringing money from DC to NCAR, no, to our community. But we are looking at new ways to open pipelines, both to public partners and to private partners. So here on the top, we've got our public partners, and the bottom, logos of our private. Now, there's no such thing as a logo for a Congressional Appropriations Committee. So if you look at the top right, all I could find was a picture of 5 old men in a room. So take a look at this slide. So which is the ivory tower, and which is the National Laboratory for Atmospheric Sciences? So the point I'm trying to make here is that there is a cultural and operational difference between Washington, D.C. and what we have going here in Boulder. And in D.C., relationships are currency, not ideas. And so we need people who are there building relationships. How are we going to do that? It's difficult, but once we do that, we have great stories to tell. We've got stories from people like Mike Smith, who wrote Warnings, the true story of how science tamed the weather. Work done, some of it here at NCAR by Jeff Lazo, et cetera, on the economic and societal impacts of tornadoes and hurricanes. We need to be telling these stories to our funders. And I don't know if you all have seen Nate Silver's latest book, but he has a chapter in the middle of the book that talks about weather forecasting. Now, Nate Silver says that humans are terrible at predicting things, like economies. We don't do a terrible job. But the one thing that humans do really well is getting the weather right. And so that's a story that I'm going to be telling. So I want to talk a little bit about filling in the leadership void. In the past, we've had some charismatic figures, like the guy on the left, and you all might have heard of the guy on the right as well there, who have gone to DC and talked about things like climate change. But the guy on the left is no longer there anymore. The guy on the right, he's allowed to retire soon. So what are we going to do? We need to build the future, the next generation of scientists who are going to go to DC. That's why we have congressional science fellowships, which scientists can apply to, and we have congressional visits days, and we're bringing young scientists too. Also, we're going to try to fill in a gap in institutional leadership, and so we're working with groups like these on a new era of collaboration. For example, where can we head next? Could we have a U.S. Commission on Weather Policy at some point in the near future? Also, it's no coincidence that we're going to be co-located with a Consortium for Ocean Leadership. For the first time, we're going to be able to work with the Oceans Committee and have ocean atmosphere proclamations, correspondence. We're going to work together in a strategic way than we haven't done in the past. So I just want to conclude here by saying, ultimately, this is a resource that's for you. It's open. The office is open to every UCAR employee. If you're coming to DC, please call me, email me, let me know, and I will welcome you up as a buddy in my office. And mhenry@ucar.edu, and I just want to end on a historical note here from Thomas Jefferson. Thanks very much.